Welcome to Creative Power, a podcast designed to help you claim the full spectrum of your creative potential. I'm Camilla Fellis-Arnold, and I'm passionate about discussing how we change the face of both the creative industries and how we interact with creativity itself, so that it nourishes our soul and helps us express ourselves with alignment, flow, and authenticity. Let's get started. Welcome to Creative Power. Can you feel the shift in the air now we're past Ostara, the Spring Equinox? In the last episode, we heard from Emily Tuck about how this shift can affect our creativity. And I think this is the perfect opportunity to check in with yourself and your current projects. Is the energy on them still fresh, or is it in need of a boost? Or perhaps certain projects have ebbed and new things are surfacing. Around each Sabbat and Esbat, personally, I do a ritual that helps me review and reflect. It's a great practice that allows me to draw together all of my activities and ideas. In the process of this ritual, I acknowledge and let go of the completed projects, and I focus myself on what new projects and creative ideas need my attention. So I think this is a great time to just check in with yourself, basically, and see what is coming up for you. What creative ideas are circling in your head? And if it's not a solid idea yet, what thought keeps popping up in your head? Sometimes this thing happens to me where I think about like a memory or a random piece of knowledge or something I've read, and it keeps popping up in my head and I'm not quite sure what it means, but it just won't leave me alone. So when that happens, I'll sit with it and I'll allow my mind to just wander, maybe even journal on it, and just see what comes up. And then whatever journey into Wonderland, just let that journey occur. Follow all those random trains of thought that, on the face of it, they may not make much sense. But isn't that exactly what we do as creatives? We bring these abstract concepts, random things, and piece them together in a way that builds a narrative and speaks to someone's soul. And in order to even get to doing that, we need to be prepared to go into Wonderland ourselves. And for me, usually by the end of this mental adventure that I let myself go on, it will spark off a new idea in me, or I'll find a new part or a new layer of an existing project that I'm working on. And this is where it gets really exciting and maybe also a little bit scary, or maybe a lot scary. Because who am I to bring this incredible big idea to the world? I'm just a little human making things in my spare room in, say, snatched hours of the evening, right? You start to talk yourself out of it before you've even tried. You haven't even got to the arena, let alone got to the starting block, and already you disqualify yourself. Several things can happen at this stage. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Do you remember those? I absolutely loved them as a kid. Well, still love them now if I'm being honest, but I digress. Anyway, you start reading and then you are presented with choices, and you would flick to whatever page it said based on your choice. And it made for a really exciting way to read the story. But if you weren't careful, certain choices would have you rereading pages and retracing your footsteps. You'd be stuck in a potentially endless loop unless you made another choice and did something different. Only thing is, we don't realise we have a choice, or we don't like the choices on offer, or some of the choices have such unknown paths that we're afraid to take them. Think about in Beauty and the Beast, Belle's dad, when he's going off to the market and he gets lost with his horse, and the horse doesn't want to go down the scary path, but he's determined that we're going down there, and it leads to the beast's castle. Sometimes you see the choice there and it's really scary and you don't know if you want to take it. But then we grind to a halt with our exciting creative ideas, especially now in this period following the spring equinox, because what is happening, as Emily explained in the previous episode, is that we're just getting that forward momentum, but only just. Seeds of ideas are only just beginning to poke their head above the surface, and so are 27 reasons why we don't feel good enough to bring them to life. As we head through Beltane towards that summer solstice, we will have much more momentum and energy to power through. But right now, it's like being Bambi, learning to walk on new legs. Who we are being in the world is still emerging, still evolving. It's not quite solid yet. Our legs are still wobbly. We're coming out of hibernation and figuring out who we are now in the light of spring. Who do we want to be now is in fact an even better question to be asking ourselves. Who do we want to be now? This is an opportunity to choose another path on the crossroads, do something different to what you've historically done, and create something new for yourself and your creative practice and your life. It's a time where you can really dig deep into those limiting beliefs and really clean them out. I'll give you an example with myself. For me, in the last, 48 hours, a project that I started and dropped off from last year has been galvanized, and it needs action now to make it happen. This project, it was 2 collaborative book titles, and I started it with gusto last year, and then I felt really intimidated. It was bigger than me. It required a different version of myself to lead it, and it threw up a million billion reasons why I shouldn't do it. So I stopped because I didn't feel good enough. Classic impostor syndrome, am I right? Fast forward to this past weekend, and the idea has popped its head back up above the ground again to ask me, well, how about now? And I want to do the project because it's a great one. I loved it when we first met, and I still love the idea now. So I'm asking myself, what is standing in the way of me doing this now? Like right now. So instead of shutting down the voice in my head with 27 reasons why I shouldn't, I'm listening to them. And then I'm dissecting them, I'm challenging them. Is this fact or fiction? What evidence do I have to support this accusation in my head? Maybe it's a thought of, well, who am I to bring this idea to the world? Well, why not? The idea came to me, so why wouldn't I be the person for the job? We live in a society where we are taught to downplay our talents and reject our unique genius. Thing is though, that's the secret sauce that makes these things go. Think about your favourite artist, musician or writer for a minute. They all have this je ne sais quoi that is uniquely theirs, and you love it. absolutely love it. You can look at a piece of their work, read one of their books, listen to a song of theirs, not know who it is, and you instantly recognize it as theirs. They've put their spin on it, their own flavour, and that's the part that you have tuned into and got hooked on, not the idea itself. We, as the creative vehicle for the idea, are just as important as the idea itself. Because the idea, it could float off into space and land in someone else's head. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about a moment where that happened to her with a novel idea that she had, and she didn't use it in her book, Big Magic. She obviously explains it in more detail in there. And I might add, it's an excellent read, and you absolutely will want to stick it on your reading list. It's essential reading for living a more creative life, in my opinion, and really helps you understand how creativity lives and breathes with us and within us. So her idea for this book went off to find someone else to write it because she sat on it for too long. And that person would have put their own spin on it as they brought it into the world. The bare bones of the story remained the same, but the bells and the whistles were different. And I think, as creators, we forget how important our view is and the magnificence of what we bring to the table as individuals. Our unique perspective, all of our skills and experience, our personality, all the things that make you, you, and not anybody else are what people love about you as a creator. It is what wins you legions of fans when you embrace your authentic self and actually give it a chance to shine out and be seen. And hey, I know being authentic and not afraid to show it is a whole bucket of scary biscuits in itself, so I will save that topic for another day. Actually, if you have any questions on that, do send me a message on SpeakPipe and I'll answer it for you in a future episode. I'll leave a link in the show notes so you can send in your questions. But going back to what I was saying, it's this lack of belief in our own internal authority that causes a wide majority of creative block and feelings of imposter syndrome. A lot of those excuses and fears that will be popping up as you start thinking through new creative ideas, all of that noise, all of that internal monologue that is trying to stop you in your tracks, that's your ego. It's not actually you, though. It's simply the ego trying to keep you safe within what it knows, even if that doesn't actually serve you or bring you any joy. However, it is definitely familiar. Imposter syndrome keeps us safely inside that comfort zone. But you know what? There's no growth there. There's no excitement. There's no joy. There's no inspiration. There's no access to the creative life you truly desire in the comfort zone. What makes us so powerful as creators is our ability and our willingness to step out of our comfort zone, to face our fears and renew ourselves. In our ability to allow ourselves to evolve as human beings. Hey, evolution is not just for Charles Darwin, you know. So when that inspiration strikes, the new idea grabs you, and you are super, super energized and excited to do it, and then 27 reasons appear in your head as to why you can't. What are you going to do about it? What can we do about it? First of all, I think it's important to acknowledge it. Hello, imposter syndrome. I see you. I hear you. I hear you, but I'm not listening. And again, going back to Big Magic by Liz Gilbert, and I know I've said this before in another episode, but I'll say it again because it's so good. She talks about it being like driving a car. You can let fear ride in the car with you, but it absolutely does not have the steering wheel or control the GPS or map. It's just a silent passenger. Because, and here's the hard truth about it, it doesn't matter how successful you get or how many things that you create. The fear will always be there. Its shape may change. The things it's afraid of may change. If right now you're wondering, who the heck are you to pull off that big idea with zero funds, working from a cupboard under the stairs in the middle of the night? Well, by the time you've made millions and have legions of fans, you'll then be afraid of whether you'll ever have another idea as good as your last, whether you can replicate your success, or if people are getting bored of you now. The narrative may change, but the presence of fear will always remain the same. Make your peace with it. Like really make your peace with it and learn to let it tag along. Because actually, the fear can be useful. Bear with me a second. How can the fear be useful, you might be wondering? You can use those fears to plug gaps and solve problems. Let's say your internal monologue has started on a whole rant about you being just one person with not enough funds or resources to pull this thing off. So take a breath. This is an opportunity to see what you can do to change that. Creative people are natural problem solvers. We are incredibly resourceful, whether we acknowledge it or not. We can find our way out of metaphorical paper bags. If you really want it and the desire to make it happen is greater than your fear, you will 100% find a way to make it happen. That might mean you need to work on your self-image. Do you see yourself as someone capable of pulling this off? Do you believe deep down within you that you have the leadership qualities or organizational skills in order to make it a success? No? Okay. How do we solve that? Go learn from those who have those skills. There are courses, mentors, coaches, books, videos galore. Heck, in this digital age, there is tons of free information on the internet to get you started, all at your fingertips. Use your fears as signposts for the gaps and be proactive about filling them and solving them. Because then what you find is that without you looking or even noticing, somewhere in the journey, who you are completely changed. Suddenly, when you think about working on that creative project, you can't find those fears anymore. They evaporate and change the narrative because you've answered the fear. You've found a solution. And when a fear or limiting belief has been solved, next time it pops up, it's got nowhere to go. The train of thought just, it stalls in your mind. I know because I've experienced it myself. It's like your brain just can't find what to do next. And in that gap, where your brain doesn't quite know what to do because what it thought was an issue isn't a problem anymore, that little tiny gap That's when you take action to move your idea forward and create something new, because your brain, your ego has gone on pause and you have space and time to do something. So on a practical level, as I said earlier, when imposter syndrome kicks in around a new idea, the first thing to do is really acknowledge its presence. Thank it for being there, for highlighting the issues. Listen to the fears and objections. Work out what can you do about them on a practical level. What can you do to gain the knowledge, skills, experience or resources you need to make your idea happen? Who can help you with this? If there's one thing I've really learned in the last year, is that it's so much easier when you don't walk the journey alone. Having a really good friend for accountability, or working with a therapist or a coach like myself for support, working through those blocks really helps you feel less alone when you do it together. Because you know it, creativity can be a really lonely business when you're trying to get that idea out of your head and into the world. So build a network of supportive people around you to make the journey easier, and then it won't be quite as scary to walk in the dark. And right now, as we've just passed Ostara, the Spring Equinox, this is like a prime time to really face those things holding you back. We've got a whole, 9 months until the end of the year? What story do you want to tell by the end of it? Do you want it to be a story about how you didn't move forward on that great idea because you were scared? Or do you want to tell the story of an adventure of a lifetime, creating something incredible because you dared to jump and find your wings on the way down? You get to choose how your story ends. Make it a good one. And as I said earlier, ideas around now will be starting to poke their heads above the surface, looking for you to help bring them to life. And as they grow, well, so do those 27 reasons why it's not a good idea for you to do it. They grow too. So use these next few weeks as an opportunity to face those fears head on. Because by the time we hit Beltane on the 1st of May, we will be gaining momentum fast. We will start to feel that energy of being like raring to go and get out there and do something. Summer's coming. So if you address those fears now, while that energy and potential is still rising, by the time you feel the call to dive into action mode, you'll be ready. You will be ready. You will have addressed those fears, and imposter syndrome, it just won't be there to stop you. In fact, it's why I'm planning to run my 90-day Moonwriting Flow Challenge, starting again on the 1st of May. People will have got their heads around their ideas, they'll be committed to the action, and by that time they're ready to write that book, for example. So if you are thinking that you'd love this to be the year you write your book, but still can't quite get yourself moving yet, use this time. Use this time to really dig in as to what is stopping you. And I'll see you on the 1st of May in the writing challenge to get it done, because by then, as I said throughout this episode, by then, if we clear the stuff now, we take this opportunity to, heal our wounds, clear out those blocks, fears, limiting beliefs. By then, we'll be ready to move in big ways. So the question is this: how are you going to use this opportunity to get yourself ready for the shift into doing and creating. Thanks for listening to Creative Power today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and consider leaving a review. To find out more ways you can connect or work with me, please visit www.camillafellisarnold.com/creative power.